morning. I want you to turn to the person next to you. I want you to look them in the eye, and I want you to introduce yourself as a mega genius today. Today is about you. It's an opportunity for you to retreat from your life for one day, to remove the constant stimulation of all the things in your external environment that remind you of who you think you are. The people you know, the places you go, the things you do at certain times, and the experiences that you have that you can predict, long enough to begin to learn new information, or at least revisit information that you already know, and get your brain working in new sequences and new patterns and new combinations. And if we can keep reminding you to be defined by a future instead of being defined by your past, we can begin to change your brain and body to be ahead of your environment, so that when you walk back into your life, you're no longer responding in predictable ways. So then, one day, one single day, to detach from your known familiar world. The problems you have, the pets you own, the children you have to take care of, or the parents that you have to manage, or the relationships that you're in. For you to begin to think about you, and to think about what part of you you want to leave behind, and what part of you want to create in the future. So, can you give me your absolute best today? Yes. Your absolute best? I want you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to make a deal with them that you're going to keep your energy up the entire day today. I want you to make that deal with the person next to you. So last night when we were talking, we were saying that learning is making new synaptic connections. And every time you learn something new, there is a physical change that takes place in your brain. I'm going to show you pictures of that this morning. Which means then, if you begin to learn something new, new neurons begin to connect in new ways. So if learning is making new synaptic connections, then remembering is maintaining and sustaining those connections, which means you have to revisit that information, and you have to review it, and you have to fire and wire those connections so that they develop a long-term relationship. And as you begin to revisit that information and your brain begins to create pictures and you begin to describe that picture, you're creating a model of possibility. How many people are with me? And so the model that you create today has to be complete. There can't be any holes or any weaknesses in it, because if there is, you're going to just turn off and you're not going to accept possibility. So I want you to make a deal with the person next to you, that between the two of you today, you are going to build a very clear model. Because I'm going to explain concepts and ideas, and I'm going to ask you to turn to the person next to you and explain those concepts so that you begin to wire this information in your brain so that in your weakest moment, in your darkest hour, you don't talk yourself out of greatness. Make that deal with the person next to you. Now, we have this privilege of being a human being, is that we can make thought more real than anything else. And that our awareness is so mobile. You can begin to think about what you're going to do this evening and what type of wine you're going to drink and who you're going to go out with. And you could begin to contemplate and select the possibility that exists in the quantum field. And as you begin to select that future moment, you forget about the present moment. Or you can unfold the past bitter memory that's tattooed in the recesses of your gray matter, and like magic, you can bring it to life. And in that moment, it's real. And your body, as the unconscious mind, is living in that past, in that moment, and you miss the present moment. Now, the average human being loses their attention span 6 to 10 times per minute. So everybody has ADD. But paying attention is being present. And it is a skill, just like golf or tennis. The more you practice paying attention, this amazing thing happens. When you are truly present in the moment, you lose track of time and space. And it just seems like the whole day disappeared and went by because you were in the present moment. So then, if I'm explaining a concept and you were thinking about who's feeding your cat back home, or that conversation you had with your boss the other day, the things you should have said, and you slip out of the present moment, and you have no idea what I've said, you know, we think that's normal. We do that all the time, and we think that's normal. Or you have no idea what your partner is talking about because you're thinking about who did her hair. You know, I want you to make a deal with the person next to you that you say, hold on a second. I have no idea what he said. I have no idea what you said. Let's start over again. Can you make that deal with the person next to you? To change is to be greater than your environment, to be greater than your body, and to be greater than time. So then my question is, can you be greater than your environment today? Can you be greater than your body? Yes. Can you be greater than time? Yes. Because if you truly can, you will change. So then, the research shows that when you come to a concept or an idea, you know, and you're reading a book or you're watching a documentary or you're studying something and you come to a concept or an idea where there's a word that you don't understand, or a concept that's complicated and you're not going back and understanding it, do you know that if you keep reading past that point, that your comprehension goes down incrementally? So that you've just read 5 pages, you have no idea what you read. Your awareness is in the freezer with the Haagen-Dazs. Your brain is processing the information, but your awareness is somewhere else. That's because you got to something that you didn't understand, and you continued on. So if you can stay present with this information, and you can work with your partner in building the most complete model possible, and you can begin to integrate this into the networks of neurons that you already have, every time we build this concept and build it a little bit more, you're going to begin to wire that information into your brain so that when we get to this afternoon and it comes time to apply all of this philosophical, theoretical, intellectual information for you to have an experience, you have more intention behind it. And the research shows that if you assign more meaning behind what you're doing, you get better results. They took a group of Latin American maids in Texas, and they watched them. They were cleaning hotels, and they watched these maids flip mattresses and drag, furniture across the room and scrub, floors and tubs and toilets and vacuum. And they watched them and observed them, and they found out that these maids were actually exceeding the Surgeon General's requirement for exercise. They were doing more exercise, but they were all obese. And so they divided the maids into 2 different categories, and they said to the one group of maids, hey, do you know that exercise is actually good for you, and you're actually exercising more than is required in the United States, and you're burning calories, which means you're burning more energy than you're eating. And the exercise helps you lose weight, lose fat. It makes your waist smaller. It's good for your heart. It's good for your self-esteem. And they gave him all of the benefits of exercise. Now, the other group, they let them continue doing what they were doing mindlessly. In 1 month's time, the maids that understood what they were doing lost weight. They had smaller waist sizes. They had less body fat. Their heart rate went down over 10 points, and they felt better about themselves. But they didn't change anything. All they did was they had intention behind what they were doing. How many people are with me? So then, if the more understanding you have about what you're doing, and the more you can build this model, when we get to the meditation this afternoon, there will be nothing left to conjecture. There'll be nothing left to dogma. I will leave nothing left for you to talk yourself out of it. And as I said last night, science is the contemporary language of mysticism. We will use a scientific model made simple. And once you accept the concept or the idea, when it comes time to change and we go through that meditation, you will know exactly what you're doing and why. How many people are with me? Now, I understand change. I work on change every single day with myself. I have had the privilege of being in front of audiences and watching transformation, and I understand that 95% of who we are is a set of unconscious automatic programs in which the body has become the mind. And I know when you get close to change, you get real close to it, that the body tries to unseat you. So if by chance today you turn enthusiastically to talk to your partner and you see a string of saliva running down their shirt, or you see them twitching, or you notice one eye is closing, or their head is starting to bob, I want you to make a deal with the person next to you that you will do whatever it takes to keep them awake. Make that deal with the person next to you. So now, give the person next to you a hug, an embrace, and let's begin. So if your brain is organized to reflect everything you know in your life, your brain is a reflection of your external environment. Your brain is an artifact of all the things you've learned and experienced in your life. If you're not in a state of creation every single day, wouldn't you agree then that if you get up and you do the same thing as you did the day before, you're working off the old hardware in the brain and you're thinking in familiar ways? How many people are with me? And if you are seeing the same people and going to the same place and doing the same thing at the same predictable time, all for the experience of some emotion that reaffirms your identity, and that emotion that you've become familiar with, that you call you, has everything to do with your past, and those emotions are driving how you think, then for the most part, you're thinking in the past. Would you agree? Yes. And those same thoughts will always lead to the same choices. And those choices will be unconscious choices that will lead to unconscious behaviors. And those unconscious behaviors will create the same experiences, all for the payoff of the emotion that reaffirms the identity. And that familiar feeling then drives the same thoughts, and that's called the personality. So then we said last night that your biology, your neurocircuitry, your chemistry, your hormones, your genetic expression, your health is all equal to how you think, act, and feel. You with me? So then how you think, how you act, and how you feel is called your personality. And we said your personality creates your personal reality. So if 95% of who you are by the time you're 35 years old is a set of memorized behaviors, emotional reactions, beliefs, perceptions, and attitudes that function like a subconscious computer program below your conscious awareness, then for the most part, most people are unconscious all day long. Would you agree with me? So you can't take it personally because they're just running on a program. And so then we said last night, it usually takes what? Crisis or trauma or disease or loss. And then people wake up and all of a sudden they begin to become aware of how they're being. And because they feel differently, they can look at themselves for the first time. And that concept in neuroscience is called metacognition. And because of the size of the frontal lobe, 40% of the brain, that's where your self-awareness exists. And it means then you could modify your state of being to do a better job in life. You can look at yourself, think about what you're thinking about. And one of the greatest moments in my life is when I realized just because I have a thought doesn't necessarily mean it's true. In other words, don't believe everything you think. And once I realized that I had the choice to either empower that thought or not, all of a sudden I was able to observe it. So you would have to agree with me then that if you're observing your thoughts, it means now you're no longer the program. You're the consciousness observing the program, and you begin to separate yourself from that automatic, unconscious state of being. How many people are with me? And wouldn't you agree then if you were changing a habit, whether you wanted to lose weight or stop smoking or stop eating chocolate, whatever people do, you're going to have to look at the things that cause you to return back to the same choice. And you're going to review in your mind, oh my gosh, I know that little devil's going to come up and say, go ahead, start tomorrow. Chocolate's good for you. It's all right. Everybody else is eating it, And you have to become selective about that thought's going to come up, and you have to overcome that thought. Would you agree? Because that thought's going to lead to the same choice, right? So you have to review in your mind who you no longer want to be. And then you're going to have to observe your behaviors. And as you begin to observe your behaviors, you're going to have to make a decision with such firm intention that the amplitude of that decision carries a level of energy that's greater than the hardwired programs in your brain and the emotional addiction or memory in your body. And your body responds to a new mind. It gets a rush of energy. And when it gets that rush of energy, you're giving it a sampling of the future. You're grabbing the reins of the stallion, and you're pulling those reins in, and you're saying, I'm the boss. And the body, the animal, begins to respond to your mind. And then you have to look at the emotions, the feelings that you look forward to, whether it's guilt or shame or unworthiness, that's become so familiar, you don't even know that you're feeling that way. It just feels like you. And you have to decide then, does this emotion belong in my future? Do I want to bring this into my future? Because as long as I'm living by this emotion, I'm living in my past. So then as you begin to observe those states of mind and body, you begin to objectify your subjective self. And just like viewing a videotape of yourself, playing baseball, playing tennis, dancing a dance, speaking publicly, whatever it is, if you can observe yourself, it means you can self-correct better. Wouldn't you agree? So then the process of change then is becoming conscious of your unconscious self. And when you begin to decide every day who you no longer want to be, you are retiring the old self. And the body will crave the emotional payoff just like an addiction. And you have to understand that that's the biological, neurological, chemical, hormonal, physiological, genetic death of the old self. And when you begin to understand that, you can work then in creating a new self. And you can begin to emotionally give your body a taste of the future ahead of the actual event. And as we said last night, the emotional signature is exactly what signals the gene. Because the body does not know the difference between the actual experience in your life that creates the emotion and the emotion that you're fabricating by thought alone. To the body, it's the same. So the materialist would say, I can't give thanks for my wealth because it hasn't happened. Well, that's because you believe that your personality somehow is being created by your personal reality. In other words, your environment is controlling how you think and feel. That's the Newtonian model of reality. But the quantum model of reality is how you think and feel begins to affect your external environment. So then, as you begin to decide what thoughts you do want to fire and wire in your brain, and you move into a new state of being, and when from that state of being you begin to plan your behaviors, instead of obsessing about all the worst things that could happen to you, you start obsessing about what you're going to do with all your wealth, with all your health and vitality, with all your freedom. And as you begin to plan your behaviors and rehearse your actions, your brain does not know the difference between the external experience and the internal experience, because if you're present with what you're doing, the thought is the experience. How many people are with me? And the brain captures a thought as the experience because of the size of the frontal lobe. That's the crowning achievement of the human being. That's where you create from. And as you begin to speculate possibilities and you review it over and over again, the frontal lobe silences the circuits in your brain that has to do with all the chatter. It's the symphony leader, and it cools off the voices and the chatter in your mind, and it begins to randomly select new networks of neurons based on what you've learned intellectually and what you experienced. And as the brain, the frontal lobe, begins to select different networks of neurons, it creates a picture, and that picture is called an intention. And that intention then is your compass to the future. And then when you can combine that clear intention with an elevated emotion, and men will say, well, I don't know how it's going to feel because I haven't experienced it yet. Really? Well, how would you feel if your wealth came? Happy? Gratitude, appreciating life, and love with life? Give your body a sampling of the future. Let it begin to taste the future. And if you do that, then your body is beginning to change to look like the experience has already happened. So now, if your brain and body show physical evidence that the experience has already happened, then your brain and body are no longer living in the past. Now, in fact, they are a map to the future. And to live by this law is to live by the quantum law. And the quantum law says your environment is an extension of your mind. And if you truly change your mind, there should be evidence in your life. Why else would we do this? How many people are with me? So I want you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to have a robust conversation about that. Come on, get it going. How many people are still with me? Now, you already know this, because everybody in this audience has done something great. You've impressed yourself in some way, haven't you? People said, it's impossible, it's never going to work, and you had this vision of the future. And they couldn't see the vision that you were seeing. And you were inspired by the vision, which means your body was getting a taste of the future. You were already in that future, but they were in the past. And they were talking you out of it, well, what about this, and what about that, and what's going to do if this happens? And you're thinking that is incidental. That's minor because I'm already there. I'll deal with it when it happens. And you made a decision about that future, and your body became electric. And when it began to respond to your mind, you began to have the hair on the back of your neck stand up, and you were already experiencing the event ahead of the experience. So all of the wealth and the relationships and all of the things that you want in your life is for the emotional payoff, isn't it? So why wait for the experience to have the emotion? That's what the Creator would say. A Creator's already experienced it enough times that their brain and body already know what it's going to be like. But here's the payoff, though. The payoff is that when it actually happens, it's greater than you could imagine, because your senses are now involved in the whole experience. And the quantum field, then, is the organizer of the event. It's not you that does it. It's a greater mind that begins to organize it in a way that you least expect. It has to come in a new and unusual way, because if it doesn't, then it's nothing new. Would you agree? So then if you knew today that you were connected to a future, and you were passionate about it, and you were possessed by that possibility, and every day you kept imprinting into the field, and you were already experiencing that event, and you knew it was going to happen because your brain and body were unified in a state of coherence, tell me how you'd get up in the morning. Pretty excited, huh? You wouldn't be dragging your body around the house trying to wake it up, right? I call that the school trip phenomenon. You know the school trip phenomenon? Remember when you were a kid and, you were going on the school trip and you woke up before your parents and you were dressed You were ready to go. Your mother didn't have to go in and wake you up 4 or 5 times. You were dressed and ready to go. Why? Because something novel was going to happen. You were looking forward to something new. You were out of routine. What happened to us? That's because the body is already in the event. It's craving the unknown. You with me? So then, when you begin to see a possibility and you connect with that potential in the quantum field, and how many potentials are in the quantum field? A few? Oh, you would say infinite, yes? So with infinite possibilities that exist in the quantum field, there's infinite experiences, yes? Poke the person next to you, come on. So if there's infinite experiences, then there's infinite emotions. Would you agree? So it has nothing to do with guilt and shame and unworthiness, because the new experiences have everything to do with awe and wonder and magic and mystery. And so then if you're creating your future, because the best way to predict your future is to create it every day, not from the known but from the unknown, then your body should be waking you up in the morning like a school trip and saying, we got something to experience today. And it is that exact energy of expectation that welcomes the unknown, that welcomes the mystery, that welcomes the miraculous in your life. How many people are still with me? So then people try to talk you out of it. Look, I mean, my kids, they're all raised with these concepts, and they do amazing things. And, they sit down with me and they say, look, I want to live in Vietnam, and, I'm going to do this, and it's my daughter's new thing. And I'm the person that taught her this stuff, and there's a part of me that's saying, really? You're going to do what? And I just sit there and I go, oh, okay. And have you worked this? Oh, yeah, this is how it's going to go. Now, I can't even get in her way any longer, because I don't want to collapse possibility for her. I have to sit back and go, wow, all right, so let's talk about how we're going to get there. But people will talk you out of possibility because they're not seeing the vision or the intention that you're seeing. Would you agree? Don't you think Martin Luther King was talked out of possibility? Nelson Mandela was talked out of possibility. Abraham Lincoln was talked out of possibility. William Wallace, Joan of Arc, everybody's trying to talk them out of possibility because all of those people were defining reality with their senses. They were beyond their senses. They were in the future. The Wright brothers were in the future. They were already there. And so when people can't align with that vision, you know what you do? If you're truly committed to that end, all of a sudden, you are being greater than your environment. You are saying, no person, no thing, no experience, anything in my world is going to talk me out of this possibility. And your body, who's craving the same emotions and the same habituations, you are greater than your body in that moment. And you are saying, I am no longer living in my predictable linear time where my past is my future and my future is my past, and it's all predictable and safe and everything's comfortable. You are outside the box of that, and you're selecting another possibility that's outside of linear time. And you are revisiting that possibility, and you're experiencing that future in the present moment. And every single day you do that, you are imprinting into the field of possibility. So then, think of a time in your life, geniuses, where you did something great. Just for a moment, because you already know how to do this. Tell me, what were some of the qualities and characteristics of you when you did something great? You had a vision, yeah? And would you agree that you revisited that vision every day? You kept it alive in your mind, yes? What else? You were passionate, so you were inspired every day. So if your intention is your compass, then the elevated emotion is the wind in the sail. So you can use emotions to keep you anchored to the past, or you can use an elevated emotion to drive you to a new future. So then the passionate person is already experiencing the event because they believe that it's going to occur. What else? Energy. You had energy, and it was the vision that you had that was creating the energy. and your body began to respond in that future event. Would you agree? So you were vitalized by a thought. That was it. You were vitalized by a thought. What else? You had power. You were empowered by it. What else? So you have a sense of gratitude and peace because you already feel like it's going to happen. You with me? And you got into a state of being that was greater than the conditions in your environment. Would you agree? And your body relaxed into the present moment. How about this? You got your behaviors to match your intentions. You got your actions equal to your thoughts. And this is where I part from the New Age community. I have difficulty with the idea that, you're creating your wealth and you're sitting on the couch with your potato chips and you're waiting for someone to knock at the door with the big sign, you just won the sweepstakes. Listen, once you create and you move into a state of being, if you're not making choices equal to that state of being, then you doubt in your creation. Come on, are you with me? But when you are in that future and you are making choices, you are stepping into the unknown, and you're more alive in that moment than you've ever been, and you want to create because you know that if you stop, you're going to lose the magic. How many people are with me? So then you have a vision. You're revisiting that vision every day. You're coming out of your resting state with a level of inspiration and energy. You're in a state of gratitude because you've experienced it enough times that your energy has changed and your body is beginning to believe that the event has already occurred, because gratitude's emotional signature means it has already happened. Are you with me? And you're aligning your behaviors with your intentions, and you're making choices to not do the same things every day. Yes? So then now I want you to think of a time in your life where you decided to do something and you didn't do it. What happened then? How about you didn't have a vision? Like you lost sight of the vision. Why did you lose sight of the vision? Oh no, it's not that. You lost sight of the vision because other people were more important. Your problems got in the way. You got busy, you got emotional. Life got in the way, and that you put your attention on your problems in your past instead of on your future every day. And the moment you got caught up in the emotions of life and the experiences in your environment, those emotions clouded your vision. Would you agree? And would you agree you never got your behaviors to match your intention? You never came out of your resting state because you didn't believe it was going to happen. And you didn't believe it was going to happen because you never selected a possibility and revisited it every day until your body began to respond to a new mind. How many people are with me? And so then what happened was you settled for mediocrity, and you settled for what you have, and you were defined by your past instead of your future. You with me still? Yeah. So then every single cell of your body is spying on your brain all the time. They are. And you're the leader. You with me? And so if I were to sit down and I were to stand up fake standing up 9 out of 10 times, and the one time that I decide to stand up, my brain has already knows when I'm going to stand up. It already knows, it's precognitive enough to know the moment I'm going to stand up, and it already knows the choice on which one of those 10 times I'm going to stand up, because the body's got to make a certain amount of adrenaline so you keep the same volume of blood going to your brain so you don't pass out. You with me? So your body is observing, it's already precognitive, and it's already paying attention to all your thoughts, and it's already preparing you before you're aware of what you're going to choose. You with me? So then, if you're sitting on the couch with the remote control, and you have your computer over there, and your smartphone over here, and your popcorn over here, and you're channel surfing, and you're checking your Facebook, and you're checking your texts, and you got all this going on, and you say, think I'm going to change tomorrow. Now, what is your body, the precognitive body, observing? What is it knowing in that moment? What is it observing? Relax. He's lying to himself again. Nothing's going to happen. You know what I'm talking about, yes? But you remember that moment where you made a decision and the hair on the back of your neck stood up and you said, I don't care what's going on in my life or what people think, environment. I don't care how I feel, body. And I don't care how long it takes, time. I'm going to do this. And all of a sudden, you felt lifted in that moment. That decision in that moment rewrote the program. Literally in that moment, and your body responded to a new mind. And if every day you could revisit that level of energy, you are broadcasting a new signature into the quantum field. Because last night we said thoughts are the electrical charge in the quantum field, and feelings are the magnetic charge. And how you think and how you feel broadcasts an electromagnetic signature that influences every single atom in your life. So if the thought sends the signal out and the feeling draws the event back, then the moment you move into a new state of being, because a state of being is how you think and feel, that elevated state of being now is a signal in the field that says, this is what I want to experience. And so then by you revisiting that vision every single day, you leave the details up to the greater mind. Now, isn't that fun? Poke the person next to you, please. Look, this was the hardest part for me. I mean, I was raised by Italian parents. My father was an immigrant, and I was raised as a doer. And when I began to realize that the creative process is a very delicate balance between intention and surrender, that I have to get out of the way for something greater to take over. When I stopped meddling in the details and forcing the outcome, that's when the magic started happening. You with me? Yes. So then, there is a scientific study of tickling, you know? You know, you can't be tickled if you know where you're going to be tickled and when. So allow the quantum field to tickle you. Leave the details up to it and organize it in a way that surprises you. And that surprise, then, the brain learns by mistakes, and the brain learns by surprises. So when the event surprises you and it shows up in your life in a way that you haven't thought of, that means then the field is responding to your intention. And all of a sudden, you're smiling with this big grin on your face. The event is you're in the presence of that experience. You will look back at your entire life, and you will not want to change anything because it brought you to this moment. And the moment you are in that place, that's when your past rolls up into the present. You wouldn't want to change a hair on a person's head. You wouldn't want to judge anybody. It all makes sense because it brings you to that present moment, and that's called the natural state of being. How many people are with me? Turn the person next to you and explain. So now, how many people here understand now when I say, does your environment control your thinking, or does your thinking control your environment? How many people understand that? Yep. So then another way to say that is, is your personal reality creating your personality? Or is your personality creating your personal reality? Yes. You understand the difference, yes? Yes. So then, if you walk into your life, right? And your life is made up, your external environment is made up of what? People, pets, things, the place you sleep, the place you work, the car you drive, the computer you use, the cell phone that you're addicted to, the coffee shop you visit at the same exact time. You know, that routine, organized, predictable life that you have. there's not a lot of room for the unknown to show up if you're doing the same thing as you did the day before. Would you agree? Because we would say then, as you see the same people that you have a past experience with, and you go to the same place in anticipation of the same event that creates the same emotion, that when you walk into your present past reality, it's the external environment that's causing your brain to turn on. As you see the same people and you do the same things at the exact same time, it's the external environment that's activating different circuits in your brain to cause you to think equal to everything that you know. You know, you have a few thoughts about your coworker, you have a few thoughts about the lady at the coffee shop. You know, your external environment is causing you to think equal to it. And as long as you're thinking equal to your external environment, you keep reaffirming the same personal reality. How many people understand that? Now turn to the person next to you and explain. I just got to make sure that you get this, because some of you still haven't gotten it. If your brain is a record of the past, realize this, right? Your brain presently, right now, is pretty much an encoded series of knowledge and experience that's led you up to this present moment. Would you agree? Yep. Poke the person next to you. So then, if it's a record of the past, and you're responding and reacting to your environment the same way, and the people and conditions and the places are automatically, through your senses, turning on the same circuits to produce the same level of mind every day, then it's your external environment that's reminding you of who you think you are. How many people understand that? And if it's hardwired in there, you're doing it unconsciously. And it's those thoughts that are creating the same life. And so you're thinking the same way, you're acting the same way, and you're feeling the same way, and you're wondering why God hasn't answered your prayers. So then, if your brain is a record of the past and the hardware in there is a software program, it's become a software program, then the moment you turn the program on, you're thinking in the past. How many people are with me? And because you're turning on the same circuits that are connected to your past, you're not thinking in any new ways to be able to overcome the conditions in your environment. How many people are with me? Yep. So then, we get frustrated, we get impatient, we start trying to force outcomes, we get competitive, we get greedy because we don't know how to get outside of that box. Because the brain is firing in the same sequences, the same patterns, and the same combinations every day, and it begins to hardwire into a very finite signature. And that finite signature is called your identity. That's the box of the brain. And by the time you're 35 years old, it's a limited set of resources. How many people are with me? So then, if you're not creating then, if you're not beginning to envision possibility, and you're not learning and beginning to speculate new outcomes, you're not making your brain work in any new ways. But if you're learning information and you're reading about greatness and you're understanding the quantum model of reality and you're looking at yourself and you're reviewing it over and over again, you're adding new networks of neurons that become the raw materials for you to think in new ways. How many people are with me? And as you begin to think in new ways, you begin to fire and wire new circuits, and those new circuits become the very platform of your identity, of your future. Now your brain's no longer in the past. It's in the future because you got new circuits that you can use, that you'll keep activating and growing your brain to look like the event has occurred. How many people are with me? So then, if feelings and emotions are the end product of past experiences, and you're living by the same emotions every single day, then we said last night, nothing new's happening in your life. And if your emotions are driving the same thoughts, and then those thoughts drive the same emotions, and those emotions drive the same thoughts, and emotions are the record of the past, and you're thinking equal to how you feel, and feelings have become the means of thinking, then you're thinking in the past. How many people are with me? And nothing new should happen. Would you agree? And if you keep that cycle of thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking going on, I don't know, I'll be conservative, 33 and a third years. And it becomes so familiar to you that you don't even know, like if you didn't feel guilt, you wouldn't know how to feel. Because it just feels right, it feels familiar. And the body begins to become the mind of guilt. It becomes a subconscious computer program. And once the body has memorized guilt better than the conscious mind now, the body is running the mind. And if that's 95% of who you are, then to change is to be greater than your body. Because the body has been conditioned chemically to be the mind of guilt or the mind of shame or the mind of lack or the mind of unworthiness because it has enough experiences. How many people are with me? So then the moment you start denying the body its chemical addictions, you're not complaining, you're not blaming, you're not making excuses, you're not feeling sorry for yourself, you're not talking about anybody else, you stop that. The body's going, whoa, just a little bit. Come on. I got a lot of receptor sites for this suffering thing, man. Come on. The body's sending signals back to the brain. Come on, do it, right? And that's the body-mind. How many people understand? And so then, now you're in the river of change. So then, if you're living by the same emotion every day, then your body as the unconscious mind is believing it's in the same past experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The body's believing it's in the same event all day long. How many people are with me? And because there's no new experiences that create any new emotions that are new chemical signatures from the environment, you're not signaling any new genes in any new ways, and now you're headed for your genetic destiny. How many people are still with me? Some lights are going on. So now, if you're living by the same emotions every single day and your body is believing it's in the same past experience and you condition your body to be the mind of that emotion, then your body literally is stuck in the past. And you can't create a new future holding on to the emotions of the past. How many people understand? So then now, this is all theoretical, it's all philosophical, and we can sit around and go, yeah, that's great. But some of you will leave this event and do nothing. And some of you will step into that river of change and you'll watch your body. You know, I have 20 horses and 7 stallions. And I understand that the body is the animal. And I don't ride my horses at all in the winter in the Pacific Northwest. It's rainy. I don't want to ride horses then. It's cold. But in the summer, you know, I come home, I take the month of August on, I see my stallion, I jump on him, and what do you think he's going to say the moment I jump on him? Where you been for the last year? I got a lot of habits going on. I'm doing my own thing here. There's some really hot mares up on the other side of the property. I can smell them. Now, he's my buddy, right? He's totally bonded to me. He's my buddy. I get on the horse. What do you think he does the moment I get on him? He runs me into the wall of the arena. He tries to run me into the wall. This is my buddy. So when I'm on that horse and I notice his ear just turn a little bit and his eye head in that direction, I grab those reins and I pull him in. And I make him stand there. And I wait. And all of a sudden, he lets this big snort out. And I know I got him. And then we take another step, and he starts in a little bit, and I stop him again. And I recondition him to my mind. And I do this over and over again. And sooner or later, he surrenders. And the moment he surrenders, the horse and the rider are one. The mind and the body are working together. So don't you know when you step into that river of change, your body is going to be like that unbridled stallion. It's going to get impatient. It's going to get frustrated. It's going to doubt. Why, though? Did someone do that to you? Or did you just mismanage your emotional body? It's you that did that. Would you agree? Now, you may tell me it's your ex-husband or it's your boss or whatever. No. It's your emotional reactions that you kept in check to reaffirm the reason why you haven't changed, because you believed in that emotion more than possibility. You with me? So then when that animal starts to buck and kick, And it starts to get impatient and frustrated. And every time you notice it doing that, you settle it back down into the present moment. You're doing exactly what I do with my stallion. You're reconditioning the body to a new mind. And the more you do it, the more it trusts you. And so when you're sick, or you're diseased, or you're out of balance, you can sit down with that body and it'll work with you instead of against you. How many people understand? Now, I am not telling you this as some inspirational speech. I'm telling you this because I've seen it on brain scan after brain scan after brain scan. I have seen people in a state of frustration and impatience, their brain move into the wrong brainwave pattern, and they get out of balance, and all of a sudden, they turn it around. And the brain gets highly organized, gets very coherent, moves into different states. And they're overcoming themselves. And you know, I look around, I look at their face, and what do you think they're doing? They're freeing the body. They're freeing their own body from the chains of the past. The body is no longer tormented because it's no longer believing it's living in the same conditions of the past. How many people are with me? And that is greatness. That is the people that I want to hang out with. Because those are the ones that still believe in possibility even when their body is raging. And there isn't a person in this audience that doesn't have that level of commitment to do it. And finally, when the body liberates that energy and you are freed from the past, you will see possibilities you have never seen before because you're no longer looking at your life through the lens of the past. How many people are with me? Turn to the person next to you and explain. So now, how's your energy? How's your energy? Is it okay? So can I go a little further, then we'll break? Poke the person next to you, please. Actually, give them one of these. So then, one of the things that I learned over the last 10 years about myself is that the quantum model of reality says that thoughts have an effect on your life. Yes? When I stopped believing in that, I've traded that concept for some emotional addiction. Did you hear me? You know, because my life got in the way, or there's problems with staff, or, you know, I'm too busy, or I'm too tired, or whatever. I trade that concept for some emotion that keeps me mediocre. Would you agree? And so all of a sudden, the moment you get caught up in that emotion, you can't see possibility. Tell me why. Because emotions are the past. You can't see the future because you're emotionally trying to see the future through the lens of the past. How many people understand that? Come on, did that land for you?
Yes.
Turn the person next to you and explain that. No frowning, just explain it. So, few points here. You know, this happens to me all the time. You know, if I'm doing an event, you know, somewhere, like I was in Los Angeles a little ways back, and I'm getting ready to do an event in an audience like this, a little bigger than this, and I'm setting up my computer, you know, and I'm getting ready to start, and all of a sudden, here comes this lady, like, marching down the aisle, like, how come I'm not living in Santa Fe, New Mexico? And I say, because the personality who's living in Santa Fe, New Mexico looks nothing like that. True? True? So then, other people come up and they say, Dr. Joe, I need to talk to you. I'm like, what's up? Well, and I go, wait. Are you doing the work? No, you don't understand. No, I do understand. Are you doing the work? No. You see, You don't understand? No, I understand. Are you doing the work? So here's the question. Because if you are caught up in the emotions of the problems that are affecting you in your life, in your external environment, and you are analyzing your life within that emotion, an emotion is a record of the past that's driving the same circuits in your brain, will the answer be in that state of being? No. So then if you get beyond your emotional self, would you agree then all of a sudden you will see the answer to your own problem? Yes? So I always say, come on, just take the ride with me. Come on, just take the journey with me. Come on, cross the river with me. Forget that. Just come on, just keep going, keep going. Sooner or later, you'll cross the river and it'll become very evident. How many people understand? So how many of us then spend the majority of our life analyzing our problems within the emotion that we're reacting to in the conditions of our life, driving our brain further out of balance, and all of a sudden realizing that that analysis is normal? But only when you get beyond the emotion then can you see possibility. How many people understand? Turn to the person next to you and explain, and I'll stop my rant. We live in two states of mind. We either live in survival or we live in creation. Now, living in survival is living in stress. Now, stress is when your body's knocked out of homeostasis. Stress is when your body is knocked out of balance. The stress response is what your body innately does to return itself back to order. You with me? So you have three types of stresses. You have physical stress, like accidents, injuries, traumas, falls. You have chemical stress, like bacteria and viruses and blood sugar levels and heavy metals and hormones and foods and hangovers. And then you have emotional stress, right? Traffic jams, internet connections, second mortgages, single parenting, 401ks, Obamacare. Anyway, I have all these things, right? And each one of those things knocks the body out of balance, but then there's an innate mechanism to return the body back to order. Now, all organisms in nature can tolerate short-term stress. A deer is in the woods and it's being chased by a pack of coyotes. The moment the deer outruns the coyotes, 15 minutes later, it goes back to grazing. Short-term stress. Now, when the deer perceives a threat in its external environment, it has to mobilize enormous amounts of energy to begin to adapt to the conditions in its external world. So as the deer begins to mobilize all this energy, it's releasing all these chemicals through the adrenal hormones, and it's turning on a primitive nervous system called the fight or flight nervous system, or what's also called the sympathetic nervous system. You with me? So then, moment that all this energy is turned on, there's a rush of energy, and the body now is able to deal with the conditions in the environment by either fighting or running. You get the idea, yes? And so then all organisms have this built-in mechanism so that they can survive in the conditions in their external environment. Now, human beings are a little unique. And the reason we're unique is because we can begin to think about our problems. We could begin to forecast some worst-case scenario. We could bring up some memory from the past, and we can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. And when you turn on the stress response and you can't turn it off, now you're headed for disease. Because no organism in nature can tolerate the effects of living in emergency mode for extended periods of time. How many people are with me? So then, if you're mobilizing all of this energy for some threat in your external environment, you only have a certain amount of energy to go around. There's no energy for your internal environment, no energy for growth and repair, no energy for long-term building projects, and the internal environment of the body begins to break down. How many people are with me? Now, think about this. It's a scientific fact that the long-term effects of the hormones of stress dysregulate and downregulate genes to create disease. You with me? And that human beings can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. i.e., your thoughts can make you sick. You with me? Now that's the ultimate mind-body connection. So the question is, if your thoughts can make you sick, is it possible that your thoughts can make you well? Turn to the person next to you and explain. So remember last night, last night I said that when you react to something or someone in your life, you have a stressful event that takes place in your life. You know, the car in front of you cuts you off because there's a madman driver, and you move out of the way, you turn on the fight or flight nervous system. Why? Because you got to protect your body, right? And it has to wake up for a few moments. So there's a refractory period of chemicals that are created from your emotional reaction to something in your external environment. And if you don't know how to manage your emotional reactions, and you keep that emotional reaction, the chemicals lingering for extended periods of time, for hours at a time, or days, that's called a mood, remember? One long emotional reaction. If you keep that same emotional reaction from one event going for weeks or months, that's called a temperament. Now you have a temperament. You have a reason to be angry because of this event that happened 6 months ago. You memorizing your emotional reaction. And if you keep it going on for years on end, that's called a personality trait. And people wear their emotions layer by layer to define who they think they are based on their past. How many people are with me? Now, when those refractory period of chemicals are running from the hormones of stress because you're living in survival mode, there will always be a gap between the way things appear and the way things really are. And if you act during that refractory period, it alters your perception. Those chemicals alter your perception. If you act during that refractory period, you will always say the same thing. I should have never said that. I should have never done that. Oh my God, I should have never thought that. I should have never sent that email. Why? Because those chemicals cause you to act like an amped up animal with a big memory bank that is living in fear, living in aggression, trying to react to the conditions in its environment. How many people are still with me? Now, the adrenal hormones, the adrenaline that's created from your reaction to something real or imagined, gives the body and brain a rush of energy. And that rush of energy becomes like a narcotic, like a triple cappuccino. And we begin to become addicted to those chemicals that wake the brain and body up so that we can feel alive. And we use the problems and conditions in our life to reaffirm our emotional addictions so that we can remember who we think we are as a somebody. You with me? You know, the bad relationships, the bad jobs. We keep them there because we are using them to reaffirm our addiction to the emotion. Who would we be without those problems? So when it comes time to change then we have to break our very addiction to the conditions in our life. You with me? Now, I said that you can turn on the stress response just by thought alone. And I also said those chemicals of stress are highly addictive. Which means then you could become addicted to your own thoughts. So then, in the infinite field of possibilities in the quantum world where you get to select potentials and create a future, you would have to agree the more addicted you are to certain emotions, and you can turn on those emotional responses by thought alone, then you're going to only focus on the things in your life that reaffirm that addiction instead of on possibility. How many people are with me? Turn the person next to you and have an enthusiastic conversation about that. Now, come on, I'm going to go a few minutes longer. I got you right where I want you now. So, you're either in emergency mode or you're in growth and repair and creation. But you can't be in both at the same time. You with me? So then, if you're thinking about all day long some worst thing that could happen to you, and you're focusing on that to the exclusion of everything else, and you're picking that possibility in the quantum field because the emotion of the past, you're protecting yourself that it may happen in the future, so you're viewing your future from your past. Come on, you with me? And then as you select that predictable future, you emotionally embrace it, then you're knocking your body out of balance, physiological balance, just by thought alone. You with me? Yeah. And let's just say that it has something to do with fear, okay? And you're selecting that potential and you're reviewing it over and over again and you're obsessing about it. And your body begins to get the chemicals of fear, that if you do that enough times long enough, would you agree that you will condition your body to memorize the state of anxiety? And your body will become anxious without you because you program it. And then all of a sudden, you'll just be cruising along and you'll have a panic attack. And try as you may with your conscious mind to change it, conscious mind has nothing to do with it because it's been programmed subconsciously. How many people are with me? So then you go to the doctor and the doctor says, oh, it's a hardware problem in your brain, it's chemicals and molecules, and you need to take these things. And when you had your first panic attack, you had it on the airplane or you had it in the grocery store. And the moment you felt that panic go on and you had the visual narrowing and the lights and the change in your respiratory rate, your body was programmed into anxiety, you looked around to see what was causing it. And you thought it was you had a fear of flying or you were in open places, it's a supermarket. You correlate that internal change with something in your external environment. So the doctor says, well, here, take this drug. It's a chemical imbalance. It should make you balanced again. Now, here's the question. Did it heal your condition? You know why? Because you'll still avoid crowded places or open spaces. So then you go and you see the therapist, and she says, oh, no, it's a software problem. Your father was overbearing, and he was a perfectionist, and now you're a perfectionist, Now, even though you have the insight, does it change your behavior? Does it change your anxiety? So then you go to the psychic. And the psychic tells you that you were a charismatic Christian in the 1500s, and you were burned at the stake in Carcassonne. Now that you understand that you're a charismatic Christian and the memory is burned in your soul, does it heal your anxiety? So then you go to the astrologer. And the astrologer says that Mercury is where? Don't leave the house. 3 months, it'll be over. Now that you know that it's Mercury in retrograde, does it heal your anxiety? So you would agree that a new model has to be created, yes? So then if you keep revisiting a past memory and you keep focusing on it to the exclusion of everything else over and over again, and you create the emotions of depression and hopelessness and powerlessness and sadness, would you agree that if you keep doing that, you're enslaving your body into that past and you're conditioning it to be depressed? Come on, you with me? And then you say to your body, hey, let's get up and go somewhere. What do you think your body's going to say? I'm the mind now, and you conditioned me to be this way, and we're not going anywhere. And if you look at a functional brain scan of a person who has anxiety, it looks exactly like a person who has depression. Anxiety is worried about the future. Depression is living in the past. It's the same thing. And most people who have anxiety have depression because they're trying to predict their future based on their past. They're never in the present moment. You with me? Now, don't get depressed. I'm going to get you out of this. But isn't it good to look at this in this way? So, if you keep turning on the stress response and knocking your body out of balance, that imbalance becomes the new balance, and now you're headed for disease. You with me? So then think about this. If you're turning on that fight or flight nervous system and going into emergency mode and knocking your body out of balance because of some threat, real or imagined, would you agree if you keep putting out that energy, there's no energy in your internal environment? So then cortisol and the hormones of stress punch holes in the immune system. And most adult onset conditions are created by the hormones of stress. So then rheumatoid arthritis, MS, cancer, allergies, food sensitivities, chronic pain, that's all immune-mediated conditions. So then, if you turn on the stress response and your heart keeps racing because you're pumping out all that adrenaline, but you're not going to throttle your boss, or you're not going to go to the Bahamas, you're not going to run or fight, and you keep doing that, you keep turning on those adrenal hormones, aren't you going to condition your heart to race on its own? Yes? Isn't that what heart disease is? Yes? So if you turn on the fight or flight nervous system and you keep mobilizing all of this energy to your extremities, because that's where you need the energy if you're going to fight or you're going to run, and there's no energy in your internal environment, what's going to happen when you eat? I don't care if you eat the most organic, vegetarian, healthy diet. If you're in a state of panic and fear, you're going to turn that into organic fear in your body. Because your body is going to take those organic molecules and assemble it into a protein equal to the emotion that's signaling the gene. And the gene makes a protein. How many people are with me? And people always say, on shows a lot, and people say, well, what is the best diet? What's the best fast that we could go on? I always say, you want to know the best one? Stop complaining. Try that out. Give your body a break for a couple weeks. So now, if you keep turning on that fight or flight nervous system and all the blood is going to your extremities and away from your internal organs, is there any energy to metabolize any food? And your body's not in a state, so that's acid reflux, that's constipation, that's indigestion, diverticulitis. There's a timing issue because the body's still, it's not a time to digest a meal when the predator's around the corner. Do you understand? And so people live that way all the time. So then if you turn on the fight or flight nervous system, you mobilize all this adrenaline to your extremities, liquid energy, and you're not fighting or flighting, and that liquid energy settles into the tissues, that's called pain. And 80% of the American population has pain in their body. And all it is it's emotion stored in there. How many people are with me? So if you turn on the fight or flight nervous system all day long, and most of the blood flow is going to your hindbrain and away from your forebrain, you can't think. All you can do is react. And so we get very limited in our perception. How many people are still with me? So if you turn on the fight or flight nervous system over and over again, and the body's in a state of emergency, you think it's time to grow a baby? Is it a time for a long-term building project? The innate intelligence of the body knows it's not a time to grow a baby. So infertility, we deal with a lot of that in our clinic. The first thing we do is we get these type A women and we get them to relax. And all of a sudden they get pregnant because their body is no longer living in that mode. You understand, yes? So 95%, 9 out of 10 people that walk into a healthcare facility in the Western world walk in because of a stress-related disorder. 5% of people are born with true genetic disorders, like Tay-Sachs disease or sickle cell anemia or any of those conditions, type 1 diabetes. The rest is based on lifestyle. And isn't it funny that all the stresses in your life end up as emotional stress? Isn't that what happens? You break your leg, it's a physical stress. Then you have to take drugs to make the pain go away. That's a chemical stress. You can't go to work, which means you're going to affect your finances. Now you have an emotional stress. You with me? It always ends up as an emotional stress. Now, the emotions that are created from the hormones of stress have everything to do with anger, frustration, hostility, aggression, hatred, judgment, fear, anxiety, insecurity, unworthiness, sadness, pain, suffering, guilt, depression. All of those emotions are derived by the hormones of stress. And psychology calls that normal states of consciousness. Those are altered states of consciousness. And when you and I are living by the hormones of stress, those chemicals cause us to become very selfish, self-involved, self-centered, self-indulgent, self-aggrandizing, self-important, self-pity. It's all about the self. And those chemicals endorse the ego to reaffirm its attention on the body, the environment, and time. In other words, geniuses, when the deer is being chased by the coyote, she's only concerned about three things. The chemicals cause her to put more of her awareness on her body. I got to take care of this body. The chemicals also cause her awareness to be on the environment. Where am I going to go? Which is the best route? And it causes her to become super aware about time. How much time do I have to get there? The body, the environment, and time. Now, when you and I live by the chemicals of stress, we obsess about our bodies, what we look like, our hairstyles, our weight. We obsess about our environment, the problems in our life, the conditions in our world. We obsess about time. And our reality becomes about the body, the environment, and time. And the hormones of stress cause us to define reality with our senses and believe that the outer world is more real than the inner world, because you have to put all of your attention on the threat in the external environment, and it's not a time to go inward and create and trust. It's not a time to create when there's a predator around the corner. You with me? So then when we define reality with our senses because we are materialists, because those chemicals cause our senses to be heightened, the moment that happens, we begin to focus on matter instead of possibility. Now, the atom is 99.9999999% nothing. It's energy, it's information. It's 0.000000001% particle. And that particle exists as a momentary phenomenon. You're moving in and out of the quantum field 8 times per second. You're more energy than you are matter. And when we live by the hormones of stress, we keep all of our attention on the particle instead of on the wave of possibility. You still with me? And the hormones of stress cause us to feel separate from possibility. They cause us then, because we're defining reality with our senses, to feel all the objects in our life and put our attention on the external world. And when that occurs, those hormones cause us to try to force outcomes, to compete, to try to make things happen, because we feel like matter trying to change matter. You with me? The hormones cause us to feel more like matter and less like energy. And so then what do? Because we're matter trying to change matter, we are always trying to exert our will and force an outcome or hold on to things in the past, and we can't see possibility in that moment. How many people are with me? Turn the person next to you and explain. I'm almost done. When you're living in emergency mode, you have to keep all of your attention on the external environment. Would you agree? Because you have to take care of your body. It's a threat. You're in survival. You have to be aware of the conditions in your environment. You got to take care of your body, and you have a limited amount of time to do that. So then you begin to define yourself as a body in the environment in time, and you feel separate from possibility because you're more particle than wave. You're more matter than energy. And the hormones of stress cause us to become more dense. And so when we're more matter and we're trying to change matter, we only have a limited amount of choices to do that. So we use our ego and our personality to try to get what we want in life, and we compete and we force and we try to make things happen. Or we hold on or we manipulate to try to get what we want. Sound familiar? Because that's what's a body trying to change something that's vibrating at the same speed. Does that make sense? Now, did you ever notice when you're totally in a state of creation that you are so involved with what you're doing that you forget about yourself? Ever notice that? You're so present in the moment, so present with what you're doing, that you lose track of time and space. You become nobody. You become no one. You become no thing. You become nowhere, no place, no time. You become pure consciousness in that moment. Did you ever notice that? And when we were doing our research this past year, when I was watching these real-time meditations in the brain scan, I realized that if you're going to change yourself, you want to change something about your body, something in your environment, some future time, that you have to forget about your body. You have to forget about your problems. You have to forget about time in order to have dominion on. You have to become a thought impossibility. You with me? Now, we have all the biological and neurological machinery to do this. Because of the size of the frontal lobe, remember, 40% of your entire brain. Chimpanzees and gibbons, 14 to 17%. Dogs, about 7%. You cat lovers, 3.5%. That's it. So if your cat's smarter than you, you're in trouble. So what separates us as human beings from all other species is not the fact that we have opposing thumbs, or we stand on 2 feet, or we have little body hair, or that our eyes point straight ahead, or we have big brains. Elephants have bigger brains than us. What makes us so unique is the proportion of the frontal lobe to the rest of the brain. And that forebrain, the latest piece of neurological machinery, is the volume control. It's where we can become so involved with a thought that the frontal lobe, like a great symphony leader, quiets down the circuits in the brain that process time and space. So when you're so present with what you're doing or thinking about, your frontal lobe doesn't want to be distracted by any extraneous stimuli. So when you're truly paying attention, the frontal lobe lowers the volume to the circuits in your brain where you feel your body. And if there's no brain activity where you feel your body, then there is no body, because there's no mind to process your body. And it quiets the circuits down in the motor centers of your brain. And when there's no brain activity in your motor centers, you become still. And it quiets down the circuits in the parietal lobe where you process linear time and your association between your body and your environment. And all of a sudden, there is no time. And it cools off the circuits in your temporal lobe, where your identity exists, the people you know, the problems you have, the places you live, the things you own. All the circuits quiet down in that area, so all of a sudden you become no one. And it cools off the emotional centers in the limbic brain. And the moment that happens, the thought that you're thinking literally becomes the experience in your mind. And the brain captures the thought as the experience, because in that moment you become pure consciousness, and the brain traps it or captures it and begins to rewire the brain, because the experience is as real as anything else. How many people are with me? And now you do this all the time. The brain naturally pauses to create. You ever notice, like you're driving down the freeway and you just drove 50 miles and you didn't feel your body? As a matter of fact, you didn't even see the road. And you lost track of time? Where were you? Well, the picture screen in your inner world became more real than your outer world. And that's the exact state we use to create. But instead of focusing on your problems and thinking about them to reaffirm the emotion that goes along with them, we are going to focus on possibility. How many people understand that? So you already know how to do this. So then, when you're living in that state of creation, and you become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, no time, you're no longer a male, you're no longer a female, you're no longer a nurse, you're no longer an attorney, you're no longer a mother, you're no longer a person with a disease, you're no longer your past, you're no longer, your face, your wardrobe, your car you drive, the house you live in. You're none of that. You're pure consciousness. And only when you're pure consciousness, that is the moment you walk through the door to the quantum field. You cannot walk through the door to the quantum field as a somebody. You got to walk through as a nobody. You got to go from ego-centered to egoless. And when we did our research and I was observing and observing and observing, the moment I saw people become pure consciousness is the moment they had dominion over their brain. They could change their body. They could change something in their life. They could create some future time. So the irony is that if you want to change your body, you have to get beyond your body. If you want to change your identity, you have to get beyond your identity. If you want to change some problem in your life, you have to get beyond the thought equal to that environment. If you want to change and create some future time, you have to get beyond time. If you want to create something out of nowhere, you have to get to nowhere. How many people are with me? Now, when you are no longer thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking in the same cycle, and you're no longer endorsing these hormones of stress, and you become pure consciousness, the energy that exists in these lower centers moves because it's no longer being reinforced. And guess where it goes? Right to your heart. And you begin to fall in love with your creation. And you want the moment to last. You don't want it to end because you are so present in the moment that the body literally is believing that the experience is happening. And if the thought becomes the experience, the end product of the experience is an emotion. And you begin to feel like the event is occurring, and now you're thinking and feeling differently, and now you're, instead of being in the past, you're in the future, and all of a sudden you're taking your attention off the particle, feeling separate from possibility, and now you're putting your attention on the wave of possibility, and you feel connected to something greater, and all of a sudden you trust in the outcome. You have no idea how it's going to happen or when it's going to happen, but you don't need to, because it's already happened to you. How many people are with me? And nobody can talk you out of that. And I call that the natural state of being. Because when you are trusting in the outcome, you have to lay down the very thing you used your whole life to get what you want for something greater to occur. Now that is when you are bridging on divinity. So then, if you live in a state of creation every single day, driven by the hormones of stress, and you're addicted to those emotions, then you will be matter trying to change matter, and you'll have limited resources to do that because the brain and body are in the past. Would you agree? But if every day you put your body away for a period of time, you're no longer being defined by your body. You close your eyes and limit the amount of sensory information coming into your brain. You play soft music in the background or put earplugs in. You are eliminating your external environment, and you are getting beyond time every single day. The thing that I learned it this year. The key is to get beyond ourselves. You are the best when you're beyond yourself. And when we saw this in our workshops, when people got beyond themselves, the self that's defined by the past, they do the miraculous. And you know what? They don't even care if it happens. They're just happy that they're beyond themselves. And that's the moment it occurs. How many people understand? Turn the person next to you and explain, and then we'll break. Would you agree with me? Would you agree with me that if you get up from your meditation as the same person who sat down, nothing happened? Come on. Would you agree? Nothing happened in the quantum field. Nothing happened neurologically, chemically, genetically. You didn't signal any new genes. You didn't change your state of being. You got up as the same person. And then if you get up as the same person and you react to the same conditions in your life with the same hardware in your brain and emotional patterns in your body, then for the most part, you'll go unconscious in a matter of seconds. Would you agree? Yeah. We're going to talk about that after lunch. So then, to get up differently than when you sat down means that you were moving from your past to your future. Would you agree? And if you got up feeling differently than when you sat down then, you are in a new state of being. Would you agree? Yes. Now that's not the end, that's the beginning. The purpose of meditation is to change your state of being. It is to condition your brain and body into a new state of being and then get up and maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day. And be challenged by the adversity in your life, but you are now meeting your life from a new level of mind. And I can tell you from experience that people that have created miracles in their life, healed themselves of genetic conditions. Remember I talked about them last night? You know what they say? I want the next challenge. Come on, I want to be tested. They understand that their life is their initiation. They're ready for the next challenge. They're not shrinking from reality. They're not protecting themselves from the worst case scenario and being prepared in case it happens because they're trying to predict their future based on their past. They're outside of that. The door is open to possibility. How many people are with me? Now, wouldn't that be a fun way to live? So then you would agree with me then the emotions of fear, emotions of hostility and anger, the emotions of sadness and shame and guilt are experiences that you've already had. Yes? And so then, if you're reacting to your life in the same way and your life is bombarding you, your environment is washing you, then for the most part then, those emotions then will keep driving the same thoughts and behaviors in the same way. You agree with that too, yes? Yes. Come on. So then if you're creating, though, then you're installing new circuits in your brain, and you are emotionally conditioning your body to a new mind, and you're getting up, maintaining that modified state of mind and body your entire day, which means you're broadcasting a whole new electromagnetic signature. And people come up to you and they say, did you shave your mustache? No, I never had a mustache. Really? Really? Did you lose any weight? No. No, really? Wow. Did you get a little work done? No. You look differently because you've changed your energy. So then when you walk into your life with an elevated level of energy, now your environment is no longer bringing you down to matter. You're lifting everything up in your environment to energy. How many people are with me? And in our clinic, in the United States, when I walk into my clinic, which is rare, but when I go in there, I always tell the girls the same thing. I say, our energy has to be higher than the highest patient that walks through this door because everybody gets well today. And we are going to lift matter to a new mind. So then, when you walk into your life and you're broadcasting a new signature, you are saying to the field, this is what I'm worthy of receiving. This is what I am, this is my new state of being. And organize the events in a way that surprised me. And you are no longer observing your life as a quantum observer from the same level of mind. You're observing your life from the same level of mind when you get up and you do the same routine things every day to reaffirm that feeling called you. So then you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden you got to get in touch with that feeling. Oh my gosh, I got these problems. Oh, I have this past. Oh, and that person is the real problem in my life. And then all of a sudden, you get all of that going. We all do this. And then all of a sudden, once you get all that hardware and chemicals going, then you function from that identity. You with me? Yep. So then, if the emotion is the payoff from all the things you want in your life, then it should be a good indicator of how to create. Would you agree? Now, people say to me, well, I want wealth. And I say, really? Why do you want wealth? And they say, because I really want to be free. Oh, so you want freedom. So then, if you're creating wealth, you can't get up from your meditation until you feel free. Because if you're getting up from your meditation and you feel lack, you didn't do it. Would you agree? But if you got up and you felt free because you understand that's the emotional payoff, but you're giving your body a taste of the future before it's happened, sooner or later, you're going to knock on the door long enough and you're going to condition your body to the mind of that state. And all of a sudden, the opportunity is going to show up in your life and you're going to say what everybody else says. Boy, that was really simple. Wow, I didn't even care if it happened, or I wasn't even expecting it. And it just appeared. And so we get so many emails. Oh, this project I was working on, or this opportunity I was working on, for this thing I was trying to create for years. And it wasn't happening. All of a sudden, I just did my meditation for 2 weeks, and it happened better than I ever expected. Because they got out of the way. They moved into a new state of being, and that field that organizes the events is waiting for you to get out of the way to tickle you with a surprise. How many people are with me? So here's the question. Is it worth doing? I'll see you in 10 minutes.